The Brainrot conversation is everywhere right now. Every parenting space, every education think piece, every pediatrician waiting room. Screens are melting our kids' attention spans. We've heard it, you've heard it, your in-laws have heard it. Here is what nobody's telling you in those conversations. There is a 30-year-old card game that is functionally the opposite of Brainrot. It might already be running structured events for kids in your area, and if they aren't, I think they should be. It's free money, and I found out all of this by accident, by caving to my kids just wanting to crack open a few packs one day. Many Magic the Gathering players are wondering, how can I reach these kids? So a few weeks ago, I started putting my 10-year-old son and my 8-year-old daughter in a room full of strangers with a deck of cards and 0 social escape routes. On purpose, mind you. And yes, 8 and 10. If your first reaction was, that's too young, hold on to that. This video is here to tell you why your assumptions are wrong. It's part of the story. And just to cover my ass, let me disclose that I started writing this video while I was actually interviewing with WotC for a position in their Magic the Gathering marketing team. And for full disclosure, I've also interviewed with Ravensburger Games, who makes Lorcana, which I'll be talking about in the part 2 of this mini-series. And I've actually had interviews with the Pokemon Company International a couple years ago in regards to the Pokemon trading card game doing PR. So, as you can tell, I love trading card games enough to the point that I have almost worked with a lot of the big 3. And obviously I didn't get the positions, but like my views and opinions aren't altered due to those experiences. But I am being 100% transparent here because like this info is publicly available on my LinkedIn page, and people can and will get upset and weird about the fact that I have potentially worked for the companies that I am talking about in a positive to neutral way. So my middle 2 kids are both fairly competitive. My son leans away from social friction, and my daughter, she likes to lean in. Same table, 2 different temperaments walking up to it. They're very much 2 sides of the middle child coin. Neither of them has the built-in social tools that a teenager has. Negotiating a rules dispute with a stranger at their age is fundamentally different ask than a 14-year-old doing the same thing. And also, before I go any further, if you don't play Magic, here's what you need. The rest of this won't really land or make sense if like the words draft and universes beyond mean nothing to you in context. Magic the Gathering is a card game where each player runs their own deck against an opponent. Creatures fight, spells interrupt, and every turn you draw a card and you play the resources to pay for it. Whoever runs the other player out of life points first wins. It came out in 1993, just a little bit younger than I am. It's the granddaddy. Pokemon copied the structure in 1996, and WotC helped create the first few sets of Pokemon, but that's a completely different story. Yu-Gi-Oh! Followed in 1999. Magic is the one that everyone else built off of. 30 plus years of expansions means thousands of cards and dozens of different formats, different ways to play the same game, plus an in-person ecosystem of Friday night events at local game stores. The Friday night format is where we're about to end up in this video. This is not a Magic the Gathering channel. You don't need to know what an instant or sorcery is to follow this video. This card game is underselling it. I would more so compare it to conditional logic, like in computer. Everything's computer. But it is very much a conditional logic engine that happens to have pictures of elves and dragons and Final Fantasy characters on it. My kids started showing interest in Magic the Gathering when they found out about the Avatar and the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles set. These are known as Universes Beyond sets. Quick note, if that term is new to you, so for Universes Beyond, it is Magic's licensed crossover program, non-Magic IP printed on Magic cards. They play identically to regular Magic cards, same rules and same mechanics, but the art and flavor come from outside Magic's own settings. The lineup so far includes properties like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Avatar: The Last Airbender, Final Fantasy, which is the highest selling Magic the Gathering set of all time, with a lot more to come in the future. So for a lot of people, these IP crossovers are very controversial, but I will be upfront. Leonardo on a Magic card did what years of starter decks never managed to do, at least for my family. It allowed my kids to walk through doors that I've been holding open for them for years. And the crossover worked. But since I live in the Seattle metro area, which I would consider like the geek capital of America, we are lucky enough to have a friendly local game store that hosts draft nights exclusively for children aged 8 to 16. Big shout out to Zulu's Cafe in Bothell. They are easily top 5 game stores that I've ever been to in my life. Honestly, maybe even a top 3 nomination. Now, if you're wondering why a bunch of little mini nerds are doing a fantasy draft, I'll explain the format here in a minute. The short version is everyone gets to start on equal footing every Friday. So chatting with my son a few nights before their first Friday Night Magic, he was asking about the SOP, Standard Operating Procedure of game night. I'll actually give a shout out to Tulare Community College, the professor, because he provided a really good video that helped me explain it to my son. Because full disclosure, I was never able to actually go to a draft night myself up until this point, via the proxy of my kids. To be honest, I wasn't really interested in Magic before I had kids, at least not enough to want to actually go out and play with strangers. And after I had kids, I didn't have the time to go out and do things like a pre-release weekend or a draft night, things that are better suited for, people that don't have children. So I knew the shape of Friday Night Magic the way that you would know the shape of a country that you've never been to. He'd be drafting cards, but this is youth night. This is supposed to be for kids who are learning to play. So I just told my son he'd be playing against kids that are close to his own age. It's a very casual environment, not competitive, and the store was running it specifically for children. And he got really excited about that. The idea of going to a real game shop and playing real Magic, yes, he wanted. The part he didn't want was having to go and talk to strangers. And I mean, I get it. I kind of hate having to talk to strangers in real life too. So the thought of going to a social event and forcing myself to make small talk with people that I don't know, that still sounds like hell on earth to me. It always has. But also, I am, however, one of those nerds where if you and I speak the same franchises and the same IPs, I will talk your ear off about whether or not Magnus really did nothing wrong. And this is long after you've gotten up to grab a second drink and you've somehow gotten lost on the way back to finish the conversation. He could be as introverted with strangers as he wanted. The minimum bar, though, non-negotiable, was being able to say it's your turn and good game to another human being at the table. That was the contract. Show up and at the very minimum, just talk just enough to keep the game moving. And one last thing, because I realize that I am starting to blather on about Zulus. They haven't paid me anything for this, let me make that clear. But about how they run their youth nights, there aren't any cash prizes. There's no extra packs or anything like that for getting first place. The kids draft, they play a couple games, the night ends, and everyone goes home. And the kids also actually get a small promo pack with a couple of collector cards too. It's not a tournament at all. And I think that's exactly the right call, and we'll get to why here in a minute. But I already knew that this was going to be good for them. That was my original bet. My kids' reading levels are fine. They're really good. But reading under pressure, parsing out dense text in real time with somebody sitting across from you waiting for your turn, that's a completely different skill set in its entirety. Magic cards are not easy to read. Look at this one. As I stated earlier, conditional logic printed on cardboard. I figured if nothing else, a few Friday nights would do more for their reading comprehension and social abilities than another year of assigned chapter books. So I do what a lot of parents do when they make an expensive parenting decision. I went looking for the science that would prove that I would hopefully be right. And unfortunately, what I found was worse than I expected. Not about Magic the Gathering, mind you, but about the kids. A 2018 analysis of nearly 400,000 American test scores found measurable declines in logic, vocabulary, computation, visual problem solving, and analogies. Pew Research that same year ran a 5-question quiz asking Americans to sort statements as fact or opinion. Only 26% got all 5 right. 26%. Oxford's word of the year for 2025 was brainrot. That word didn't come from out of nowhere, it described something measurable. So I started looking for reading comprehension data, and what I found instead was its own rabbit hole. The Cognitive Development Lab at the University of Wisconsin-Madison has documented that trading card games specifically engage executive function and working memory. Not just reading, we're talking about strategic reasoning, working memory under load, the kind of stuff that you can't fake with a worksheet. And then there's the part that many young people, especially many young men, need to be learning about at an early age. Emotional regulation under social pressure. Losing publicly, losing in front of a crowd, losing in front of peers, and then having to shake hands and go about your day. There's no software in the world that can simulate that. There's no app for you just lost on camera in front of someone whose name you learned 10 minutes ago. And then I was reminded about a concept that has basically become non-existent in modern America. Ray Oldenburg coined the term third space in 1989. The great good place. Third places are the spaces that aren't home, they aren't school or work, and they exist for informal community. For kids who aren't in organized sports these days, third places are functionally extinct. The mall wants you to buy something or move along. The park gets you surveilled. The library is incredible, but it's also quiet by design. US retail store closures have jumped 67% in 2025. Movie ticket sales are down 46% from 21 years ago. The Surgeon General put out an advisory in 2023 calling social isolation a public health emergency on the same scale as smoking 15 cigarettes a day. So to me, a game store that is running Youth Friday Night Magic is charging you for a seat, yes. But that seat comes with like 3 or 4 hours of structured peer interaction, a shared language, and a reason to be there that nobody assigned to you. I just went looking for proof that me making my kids play this card game would actually help them in a way that I could justify buying more cards. I came out realizing my Friday night game store might be the last functional third place that my kids really have access to right now. And I mean, we're talking about $25 a head for 2 elementary age kids. It's not nothing, but to me, comparing that to taking them to the movies on a Friday night or to Dave & Buster's, same amount of money, yeah, but they get way more value out of it. And they even get to keep all the cards that they pull too. And if one of them pulls a rare or a mythic that night, it's possible that the entry paid for itself. Alright, so let me explain the draft format really quick because like this format is a whole game here. Draft is the real equalizer. Every player at the table opens up the same pack, they pick one card, they pass the rest. Round and round until all the packs are gone. Then from your pile of cards, you build a 40-card deck out of whatever you pulled. Whatever your kids or their parents' collection looks like at home, it doesn't matter. Whoever's dad spent the most money at the local game store last month, it doesn't matter. Some might be worth $8, some might be worth $60. A whole lot are going to probably be worth like 15 cents. That uncertainty is its own economic lesson too. But it's not gambling framing because the baseline product has real value no matter what you pulled. They didn't risk anything that they didn't already get back. So both of my kids took a minute to wrap their heads around drafting. It's not very intuitive the first time that you try it. Every card that you pick is supposed to fit into a synergistic deck that you haven't even started building, and it won't be finished until you have the last card. So at age 8, that kind of planning isn't really a part of the toolkit. So they got their cards, they made their decks, and they started sitting across from other kids that weren't me or their siblings playing this actual game. That's when the fun started to show up. After a couple turns, something that they put into their deck did the thing they hoped it would do. And that's when it clicked for them, and that's when the smiles started. And for those of you who are wondering, yes, I did expect my 8-year-old daughter to be the only girl at the table. But surprisingly, or maybe not surprisingly now, she wasn't. The first night, there was actually an older girl there, closer to my eldest's age, her big sister's age, so probably around like 12, 13 or so. She took it upon herself to be really helpful with my daughter, and teaching her a lot of things along the way. I could tell she was very competitive at the game because she was pulling out some really busted combos, and I actually played a game with her after and she completely trounced me. But she was there to play, but she was very eager to teach. Like she was walking my daughter through what all her cards did, what to look for. It was probably what that older girl wished someone had told her when she started playing as well. And like that is a moment that lives rent-free in my head ever since. And let me be clear, no one assigned the girl that role. No one ever said, hey, you go play with this other girl. No one paid her in extra packs to tutor a stranger's 8-year-old. She did it because that is exactly what the environment and the room was made for. And also, her parents obviously raised a child that wanted to help new people, and especially a newer girl, feel inclusive in this community. It's amazing to see in person what even just a little bit of good parenting can do in regards to making this world a better place. And then that's where also this no tournament thing matters. You put a cash prize or, even just a couple extra packs on a kid's table, but you put a prize on all of that, and that older girl that I mentioned isn't volunteering deck tutorials anymore. And then we had the car ride home. Like I said, 30-40 minute drive in the dark. Kids decompress when they're not looking at you. They process out loud as well. What came out of my kids wasn't drama or trauma or anything like that. They didn't die from having to talk to strangers, surprise, surprise. And it wasn't even like a specific play either of them were running in their heads. It was just them talking over and over about how much fun they had, how they wanted to go back, and how they just kept flipping through all the cards that they collected, looking at the art, occasionally using a phone to pull up the price of a specific card that they wanted to inspect further. And like, if you're a parent, you know how big of a deal that is. 2 tired kids at 9 p.m. not asking about devices or even really using their devices on the ride home, but buzzing and glowing because they had a very successful social interaction with someone who was a complete stranger. Like me just being there to witness all of it, I'm going to be chasing that high for the rest of my life. And from that first car ride on, they started learning about other Magic sets on their own time. Different themes, different art styles, different mechanics. My 10-year-old still loves Ninja Turtles and Avatar the most. Those are his worlds. Like I said, Universes Beyond crossovers got him in the door, and they're probably going to keep him there for the most part. I mentioned the upcoming Marvel superhero set, and he's already excited. My 8-year-old, however, took a hard look at Bloomburrow. It's Magic's Redwall style fantasy set, woodland creatures, cottagecore knights, wizards, but they're mice. She liked it enough that she saved up all of her chore-based points. It's our household economy that lets kids earn things that they want. But anyways, we went 60-40 on a Bloomburrow booster box. She got 60, I got 40. She did the math, weeks of saving, her share of the cost, her box. And then the bigger move, finding the corner of the whole hobby that's hers and putting down her own money on it on purpose. That is more than just playing a game. That is developing taste and going into a fandom. And I'm not going to sell you a fairy tale here. If I turn this into a Magic the Gathering commercial, you shouldn't believe a word I say in part 2 either. But like I said at the beginning, I did have very recently interviews with Wizards of the Coast to join their Magic the Gathering team. Everything that I've been talking about in this video, I would have given the same amount of passion and drive into those respective jobs. But with all of that being said, that doesn't mean that I don't have my own personal gripes about the game and the way that it's played. And I think a lot of this is because of the fact that, especially now that I'm trying to introduce my kids to all of these worlds, I am super duper obsessed with the new player experience. So what's actually wrong with the game, especially for new players? Think about trying to introduce your non-gamer adult friend or your partner to something like Dungeons & Dragons or Magic the Gathering already. Now take all of that confusion, all of that complexity, and give it to an elementary age child. For instance, what they call mana screw is real. Magic uses a resource system where you draw your lands, your resources, your mana, separately from your spells, randomly, from the same deck. Sometimes you draw too many, sometimes you draw none. Either way, you end up losing, and it doesn't feel like you lost on skill. It just felt like the game refused to start for you while your opponent just walked all over your face. For a competent player, that's very much a part of the journey. That is part of the growth arc. That's the whole point of learning how to do something like mulligan your hand. But for an 8-year-old who built their first deck ever 30 minutes ago from a pack of random cards, having something like Mana Screw is the game refusing to start, and that is the worst first impression ever. That is something that can and will happen to new players and basically cause them to never want to play again. I've seen that frustration in my wife, I've seen that frustration in my kids, and I've seen that frustration in even seasoned players. It's something that makes it feel very random rather than instructive, because there is a difference. There's productive frustration where losing because your opponent saw the line that you didn't, and then there's the unproductive unproductive frustration of losing the game because you didn't even get to do anything. Magic does both, and pretending otherwise would be straight up lying. Magic's main competitive format, Standard, or also known as Core, is a rotating set format that newer players usually enter through. Right now, Standard currently holds 15 sets, and I believe that they're pretty much going to be frozen from rotation until about 2027. A new player walking into the game right now is not just learning a new game. They're doing archaeology and 3 years of design philosophy that all has to be in their head at once. This is why I prefer playing unlimited. But at the end of the day, I'm not really complaining. I'm just naming the honest scope of what you're signing up for if you decide to start playing today. The onboarding gap is real, and if you don't have a local store that's running a youth night for Friday Night Magic, the game gets significantly harder to recommend to a kid like I am. Like I said, I live in the area where these games are made, so I am extremely privileged in the amount of choices that I have for game shops to choose from. Not every parent is going to be able to do that, nor have the ability to take their kids and drop down $50 every couple weekends. And finally, Universes Beyond. I'm just going to talk about that really quick. If you hang around Magic Spaces online, you'll see the argument within the first 5 minutes or so. The short version is that longtime players feel like the license crossovers, they're all diluting Magic's identity. And yes, there is something to be said about Leonardo and the Fifth Doctor teaming up to take out the God Emperor of mankind. I don't know. Personally, I don't buy the main argument. I've been Magic adjacent since before Universes Beyond was a thing. The Universes Beyond sets didn't erase the old ones. To me, they sit right next to them. If the game underneath is still good, and it is, who's on the card art is really a second order concern. But like I said earlier, I do think that the amount of sets coming out is a little bit crazy. Like, I love Bloomburrow. I would love another Bloomburrow set. Obviously, my daughter would love another Bloomburrow set. I'm having fun with Strixhaven and Magic Arena right now. So, maybe send me a friend invite on Magic Arena. My dogs need to go pee, so I need to wrap this up. But I'm adult enough to get over it and participate in the spaces I can dedicate my very limited time to. My kid brought Leonardo to the table, and I got me a cool looking full art Sephiroth and Donatello up in my little display cabinet. He is the one who does machines after all. So at the end of the day, it's unfortunately the wire up in this bitch. It's all in the game, baby. But I don't like how the people who make these games are leaving the on-ramp work to the stores. Pokemon has run Play Pokemon. That's their structured, branded, top-down org play program. For over 2 decades, they had things like junior divisions, and it was built in at every level, from a kid's first league meetup at a local store to the World Championships. Bandai, the Gunpla Builders World Cup, the global competition for Gundam model kits, they have an under 14 and under 20 division, and the under 14 bracket is further split into a course for 10 and under and a course for 11 to 14. The model kit hobby has a more structured youth pipeline than 2 of the biggest card games on the market right now. Magic doesn't have an equivalent, Lorcana doesn't have an equivalent either. As I said in the beginning, I think Wizards and Ravensburger, in my opinion, are leaving money on the table. They have the audience, they have the IPs, and they have the in-store infrastructure. What they don't have is a publisher level program doing the youth on-ramp work that my friendly local game store, Bothell, is doing in its own initiative. Every parent who doesn't live near a store with someone who is passionate enough to organize a youth night is paying for that gap. Now, would my kids be interested in a youth tournament if one existed? Maybe. Probably, but I think that's a separate convo from the publishers should at minimum match what Pokemon and Bandai already figured out. None of that is a list of reasons to not play Magic. It's a list of reasons to know what you're walking into and what we walked into with all of its problems, but despite all that, it was still worth the drive. Alright, so let's finish up and go back to that brain rot conversation. Like, I'm not telling you that Magic itself will fix your kids or anything like that, but I am telling you the thing that everyone in the conversation keeps talking about: cognitive engagement, social friction, third spaces. Like, that already exists. It's got infrastructure, it has trained judges and weekly events, and in most metro areas, maybe even a youth night, and no one is really advertising it to you. You gotta find it though. The store's not going to call you, the school newsletter isn't going to send you a flyer, the pediatrician definitely isn't going to recommend that you start telling your kids to get into cardboard crack. If you're in a city with a game store, look up Youth Friday Night Magic, ask specifically about Draft Night. That's the format that does the most work. Not Commander, that is not beginner friendly, that is a 100 card social format. Standard is the one with like $400 decks. And doing booster wars in the kitchen table is always fun, but that's still the kitchen table. We're talking about a draft night. If your kid is younger than you would expect, good, mine were too. And that's the case for Magic. I mean, we're driving down to Zulus tonight for the Strixhaven release weekend. But there is a second game on our kitchen table, one that solved most of what I just got done complaining about. The onboarding floor, the mana screw, the set archaeology, and after a year or so playing both, I've really got a strong preference between them, even after everything I just said. So, part 2 is why I actually prefer Lorcana over Magic the Gathering, and what that preference reveals about how both games are designed, who they're designed for, and I think which one is going to be on kitchen tables 5 years from now. Ooh, drama. So, don't forget to like, subscribe, hit the bell, that way you'll know when the next part lands. Drop a shout out to your local game store in the comments. And I want to know, I legitimately want to know, are there any other stores that do a Youth Friday Night Magic thing? Especially if they do youth tournaments. I think that'd be really cool. Until then, I hope that all your packs that you crack are full of good pulls. So yeah, thank you again. The next video, we're talking about the Poke Bros and how they are ruining TCGs. And I guess we will start figuring out what the next set of videos will be after that. But thank you again for your time. I might just be sponsoring myself for the time being. But yeah, thank you again. I love you all. And oh, patrons are going to be getting discounts based on your patron tier. So that is one of the first things I'm going to set up is patron discounts for the store. So very cool. Check out the Patreon, like, share, subscribe, hit the notification bell. And thank you. I love you all. Okay, bye. Peace.